Well, welcome everyone. I will call this meeting to order. It's May 22nd, 2024. And we have 4 out of our 5 board members, Stan and Vicky and Mary Lee and myself. And with respect to staff, Eva and Stella and Lindsay with us. First thing on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the May 24th regular meeting agenda? Did I?
Second.
A second, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Great, moving on to the approval of minutes. We have minutes from March 27th, April 14th, sorry, April 24th, and May 11th. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes? Or are there any questions or discussion when we do that?
I do have a question. For those correction. Which one? Okay, here, on May 14th special meeting minutes, or May 11th, now May 14th. It was Monday, Tuesday, I mean. I don't know why it says, yeah, all right, so when we make our motion, we should pay attention to that. Yeah, well, the meeting was, May 14th, but, Peg Gilday clarified that she no longer works with EUA. She never worked with EUA other than as a consultant or hired architect. And she's retired from her own company, GYG Architects. But I think she did work with them. Not as a. No, not as an employee, but as a consultant. Correct, yeah. She was never, and she retired from GYG.
So just,
I think
is there a
he-
change
he was
warranted?
He was at a different company also, if I remember right. We're two different companies.
Oh, yeah, the other one was way before.
Okay.
I just, that.
Right, so on the meeting minutes, it should be changed from that she no longer works with. To,
Consult with others.
she had never worked with.
Well, she consulted with them. She knew the people on EUA.
So you like to change it to consulted with, no longer consults with.
Right.
We gotta get a clarification here.
If I may,
Yes, please.
and I'm hoping I don't confuse this more, but from my understanding, when Peg was with her Gilday Architects working on the library, the Jackson location, Humphreys Poley, I believe was the name of the firm, and that is where the person from EUA, he was affiliated with that firm at that time. I guess that firm no longer exists, just as Gilday no longer exists, and so that's how they did have some working relationship at that time. So
That's helpful.
So how do we amend the minutes to?
Clarify that
Wonder if
She
you
no
should,
longer works with EUA or other architectural firm.
well, it sounds like she never
worked with you.
anyway, she worked with someone who now works there. So maybe she no longer works with employees
Well, the UN,
no longer works with architects who are not with EUA.
Or, I mean, could we just say, Peg Gilday will not work with EUA, and her previous association with them did not influence the committee's decision.
That sounds great.
well, it's
Well,
also
just
with, well,
one person that she had previously worked with. So, that.
Peg Gilday worked with one of the employees of EUA, but no longer does so.
We better clarify that, because she didn't work
Consultant.
within a, there were two separate firms. Which she
Oh.
did work together on this, if I remember.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I was not.
Never employed in the same company.
How about Peg Gilday clarified that she is no longer.
Peg Gilday has, currently has no association with EUA, and her previous association did not influence her committee's decision. Currently has no association
With anyone at EUA.
okay.
She doesn't.
Not quite right, because she did have an
Oh.
association, but it was.
I believe Abigail would like to maybe help out.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh, no.
Abigail,
Oh, somebody's here.
do you
Oh,
have
I think I have
some
my-
advice for us in terms of this wording?
We're open.
Hold on, yeah, I'm having trouble hearing everything with perfect clarity, and now it stopped, but there was some background chatter there for a second. So I couldn't hear everything, but to the extent that you're basically trying to approve your minutes, correct? And it's also correct, Peggy is not there, correct? Then I would suggest perhaps just tabling these minutes until your next meeting. So you can have an opportunity for Peggy to clarify. The other thing is the minutes are supposed to reflect what was actually said, not necessarily what was intended to be said. So two things that can happen. One is you can just table it until, for your next meeting. And then perhaps someone can go back and look at the video to see exactly what was said. And if it helps, Peggy can weigh in on that. And then you can have revised minutes for your next meeting to approve. You don't have to approve these now. And given the circumstances, I actually would advise you to just continue these until your next.
But we could approve the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can approve the other ones, just alter your motion, saying that you're only approving the 2 months. And it can just say we're only, I move to approve March and April. And we're going to hold off on May until the next meeting.
That's great.
And check on the day of the meetings too.
So does anyone have any other discussion or additions for the March and April meetings? And if not, let's do a motion for those two.
And I move to approve the minutes from the April meeting and the March meeting. The April voucher meeting and March regular meeting, or vice versa.
I second. It's the regular meeting. Yeah, I second that motion. Any discussion?
For the clarification, since this is already out there in print, should we specifically say we are postponing our approval on the May 11th meeting until our next board meeting?
Yeah.
Since this is it's in print.
Yeah, but it's not in the minutes. This is just a suggested motion, is how I see it. But I think you're right. I think you could say the motion is to just approve the two. And our intent is to
Postpone.
revisit
Revisit.
the minutes from May 14th, not 11th.
Right, and your minutes from this meeting should reflect the altered motion and, a little bit of the discussion and what the motion and the vote was on this. And then, and it's actually one of the reasons actually why I always put draft watermarks on minutes being presented and then before they get finalized and sent over, either on your website or the county website with all the agendas and minutes is to, maybe mark it final. Before the chair signs them or the secretary. So
Just rescind the second and the motion and then just redo a different motion for this. We just discussed.
meaning because your current motion is different than the one in the staff report that's linked on the agenda for the public, is that the question?
Yeah, because we decided that we're gonna add the wording about the May 14th meeting and revisit that, but that wasn't in the original motion. And I was just wondering if we just rescinded that motion and this.
Oh.
Yeah,
Or you could do a friendly amendment. So
Yeah.
if the first motion was presented, including May, and then seconded, you can either just, whoever did that motion can withdraw. It might be easier. Withdraw it. Whoever made the motion, withdraw it. The person who seconded it agrees, and then someone else present a new motion with the language taking out May.
We never just a motion. We had this discussion first.
Okay.
So I think the motion doesn't need to be amended in a friendly way. I think we can
just,
have these minutes, reflect that we're gonna revisit May 14th, but the motion, which I think Vicki, you put forth, is to approve the minutes of March 27th, regular meeting, and April 24th voucher meeting. And I seconded that motion. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
And then,
I'm gonna oppose.
Okay,
those are the only 2 minutes that will go
right.
into the library's posted minutes.
I would like to propose a amendment to that motion. By stating that we will revisit the May 14th meeting at our next board meeting. So it would read the same and then just add the minutes there.
Okay,
So
that,
I could read the whole thing if that makes sense. All right, so the new motion would be. I move to approve the minutes of the March 27th. And April 24th regular, or let me try that again. I move to approve the minutes of the March 27th, 2024 regular meeting and the April 24th, 2024 voucher meeting. And we will revisit the May 14th, 2024 special meeting and we'll revisit it at our next board meeting.
do I have a second?
A second.
Smoothly, any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Okay, you
Any
just
opposed?
voted to approve his amendment. Now your motion is with the amendment. Now you need to vote on the motion as amended.
You gotta vote to do the amendment first and then the revision.
So we just voted on the amendment, right?
Yeah, you voted to approve the amendment. So now the
Yes.
amended motion is before you. So
I will move to approve the amended motion
as stated is fine.
as stated. Do I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Stella, do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, we have time and welcome public comment. If there are any comments from anyone either online or,
I'm not seeing anything online, sorry. didn't mean to-
okay, great. I mean, not great, either way, but thank you. All right, no member of the public is online.
Correct.
So, The sun came.
I know. All right, so we're moving on to the financial narrative and documents. Stella, would you like to highlight anything for us? Otherwise, we could make a motion to approve the consent agenda, but I always welcome, your context.
Sure. This month, we did receive our annual renewal for the Wyoming Local Government Liability Pool. And this year's payment is $10,203. Because approval of the insurance happened with the previous library board, we did not need to bring that amount to you for approval, but just letting you know, since that is a higher ticket item. I also would just like to mention that the reason the library, even though we're part of the county, the reason we pay for our own LGLP insurance is because we have our own employee identification number. And due to that reason, we are required to have the separate insurance. I have discussed with Kip if at some point we could possibly look into whether we still need to continue our own EIN, especially since the county processes our payroll, so I'm not really sure what that would entail. But that might be something we look into in the future. So, and assuming then that we would just pay the county our share, but not having to have a separate account.
Okay.
The other thing I want to highlight, with the vouchers for this month, we did 2 separate vouchers for Amazon payments. One is just our regular. One of the things we're discovering with Amazon, so the library has an Amazon Business Prime account. For some reason, even though we pay every month, Amazon has had this history with us of on some of our invoices doing a partial payment or not applying the payment, and because we just can't get a hold of a live person at Amazon, we've gone back and forth with emails. What we decided to do is try and submit a separate voucher, hopefully a separate payment for approximately, there were 4 invoices that Amazon is saying are past due. And so we're hoping that that will clear up the problem. And hopefully we won't have to keep doing this in the future. So therefore there's 2 Amazon payments. I would also like to mention that Lindsay has had incredible patience with Amazon because she's been the one going back and forth trying to reconcile this issue with them. And then the other thing I'd like to make note of, so as you know, a couple months ago, with Abigail's suggestion, we started listing the warrants checks paid for the previous months. You will see there was a special 1-item reissue. We had one vendor, OCLC, that we paid back in September, and then about 2 months ago, they started saying that they'd never received the payment. So the county put a stop on the payment and has just reissued them a check. So that's why one of the warrants is just 1 item only, is for that reissued payment. And of course, because you all had already approved the vouchers for that month, we didn't need to come back to you. And actually did that.
What's OCSC?
OCLC, I'm now forgetting what that stands for, but it is a company that is based in Ohio, and they're basically like related to our interlibrary loan. When you do certain searches with interlibrary loan, you go through their system, so they're international, national. Also, we pay for a couple of products for them that are used for our catalogers. So there's some software that we also get through OCLC, so. Thank you. And I think that's everything I wanted to clarify.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Stella? Thank you so much, Stella and Lindsay. Thank you for putting up with the lack of real people on the other end of the Amazon line. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion.
I'll move to approve the May 2024 consent agenda.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second the consent agenda motion.
Vicky, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Oh, great, motion passes. The next thing on the agenda is the director's monthly report, which was really thorough and, as usual, a pleasure to read. And I think I speak for the whole board, when we say we're really happy that Kip is taking some needed time off. And we wish him a happy vacation. In his absence, Stella, is there anything you wanna highlight that he asked you to mention or?
Sure, I think on a really happy note, the library is once again fully staffed.
Great.
We have a new employee over in Jackson, who's our new youth coordinator, Matthew George. And so he's been with us a few weeks and is doing quite well. And then here at Alta, we have two new part-time library assistants, although I'm happy to report both of these new library assistants are actually former library employees. So we have Stephanie Crockett and Naomi Guevara. So it's nice to have them back.
Do they live in Alta or do they commute?
They live in Teton Valley.
I'm good.
Because they're not in Alta.
Great.
And then maybe one more thing from Kip's report, I'll highlight. Actually, two things. Regarding the space planning study, the ad hoc committee will be meeting in June with EUA to just kind of discuss the contract and hopefully have something to bring to you to the June library board meeting. And then the Foundation and Friends sponsored coffee cart will begin new summer hours the week of June 1st. The new hours will be Tuesday through Saturday from 9 AM to 2 PM.
So a little side note about teas also, but.
And maybe feedback.
And it's so good, and I'd also like to thank the Library Foundation for their support, because I do think it's a huge, wonderful benefit for the library.
Has it been well, like, received? I mean, I think people are excited about it, but are they getting business? Do you know?
It's pretty slow, but people are very happy about it. We get a lot of feedback that's super positive. People are grateful. We even received a couple of emails saying, "Oh, this coffee cart is so great in the lobby." I think it's been just a little quiet on quiet days, but when we had events at the library, when there's more patrons in the library, it gets very busy.
Oh, good.
So that's exciting.
We were there last time, it was fuzzy.
Yes.
Plus, I would think once the summer traffic starts coming down a little.
Yeah.
Right, and once the hours are published on the website and you can, it was kind of hard to know about, it's been a soft opening, yeah.
For sure, and in fact, that's one of the things we talk about is more regular hours and signage on the front door or in back in the doorway area. There's often meetings held in the doorway, and if those folks know they can grab coffee, right?
So one of those like neon signs that says coffee, like Starbucks has.
Groceries had like a little sandwich board that could be put out on the. But anyway, I think it's great too.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions that Stella, or, comments about Kip's report that perhaps Stella could answer? Anything jumping?
Very busy and so much going on, and it's exciting to read his reports.
Great. Okay, great. Then moving on, so the coffee cart was a good segue to Diana. Want to share?
Yes, I do, and I apologize for not having a written report. It's been wild this week.
I'd love to see.
Unless
Great.
Talk about how wonderful it was, what a pleasure to have a. It was unbelievable.
it was unbelievable. We, again, so many emails coming in today.
Really good.
Folks were Diane Eden and I were talking today, she said folks were leaving with their hand on their heart, like, wow, that was just amazing. It was an amazing event, and so we're grateful to be able to support that. We are so grateful to Leah for her vision in inviting Ada Ramon. It was a great event. I'm also excited to share just about 3 things I think are really fun to share with you. One is during National Library Week last month, the Foundation and Friends took a really active role in wanting to bring that attention and appreciation aspect to the library in celebration, right, of National Library Week and us celebrating our own Teton County Library. So we approached our local representatives, the county board of supervisors, who passed a resolution proclaiming National Library Week. That was very exciting. We're so grateful to have Stella present that day, part of the resolution, to have Vicky present there to speak. So it was so wonderful to see the support, and to have the commissioners also verbally share a few words of support. So we're so grateful for that. We also had a staff appreciation event that week and hosted a lunch for staff. We had on Take Action for Libraries Day, we held a reception in the lobby, debuting the new coffee cart and hosting free coffee for patrons that day, free coffee and donuts, and encouraging signups for volunteers. And I'm happy to say we got 6 people signed up to be volunteers for the library. We also debuted the new outreach library on the go outreach van out in the front of the library. So it was an extremely festive day of folks feeling really good about all the things happening at the library. So I think National Library Week this year was a great success. And in having all those activities, we're already looking forward to making next year as robust a celebration or even better. So I wanted to share that. In conjunction with that, we had our first ever Library Giving Day. This was started by the Seattle Public Library about 4 years ago. And they encourage libraries nationwide to, our patrons nationwide to give the local library on this one special day in April. Some libraries extended, which we did. We extended it for the month of April. And we raised an additional just under $11,000 during Library Giving Day celebration. So we're thrilled with the support we received for that. Other than that, we're in the budget process right now. As you know, our board will take into consideration the library's funding request for fiscal year 25 next month on June 26th. And so right now, I'm so excited to share that I've received a bunch of funding request applications and outcome and impact reports for this year's funding, so we can see, what were the outcome of the programs. So we're going to be reviewing those, and I'll be excited to share with you next month a full report on those funding requests, as well as this fiscal year 24's spending to date up to May 31st. So lastly, administratively within the organization, we are working on an entire new redesign of our website. So we hope to have a really robust site that really draws attention to the programs that the foundation supports. So when folks come to our site, they'll really get to understand how those supportive dollars and the volunteer hours are put to work at the library through our website. So
It's great. Thank you so much. Any questions for Diana? Thanks again. It was really fun, really, first of all, to stand in for Kip last night, but to have so many things, to highlight. And it really is largely due in part to your good work and the foundation, which I know is sweet. So
I don't know if you got my email, but thank you for speaking. Because I think that when you listed those highlights of those programs, I don't know if you could hear in the crowd, there was an audible sound of support and excitement for the various
I
things. that are
couldn't
being-
tell, I think I did hear maybe for the coffee cart. Did you hear it for all of them?
You start talking about makerspace and the recording
Oh,
studio,
good.
I can hear this buzz of whoa
Yeah.
throughout the crowd.
That's
So
great.
that was fun.
Okay. Great, and then just for the record, I know Leah didn't want to be thanked last night, like called out, so we thanked the whole staff, but. For the sake of these minutes. Please, let's just note, like, the work that Leah did to get Ada Ramon here and, she did a wonderful job, kind of. Just accompanying her around town, I think, and making her feel really welcome, so big thanks to Leah. Okay. Yeah. Alton Branch update, thank you for hosting us.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Yeah. I'm glad you did get an opportunity because you can see, you probably read in the minutes things about the upgrades. One of the biggest things as you walked in here, just having the picnic table out front. If, as you can see, we got sun right now, so we could actually probably have this meeting outside. Be really lovely. Yeah, it's also, April was kind of a busy month. I was fortunate to go to the public library, annual conference or biannual conference in Columbus, Ohio. And I was just really an observer and going to the different programs and events that they have there. And then came back full force to try and get two new PTLAs on board, which has been awesome. Over some other things that are gonna be happening before the end of the fiscal year is some outdoor work. You guys can get a chance, we've had a few years which have been awesome of the phone party, the summer reading phone party. But we are gonna be doing some revamping for that area, with some, berms and some things like that, so be more of an inviting outdoor space. Even though it was great for a phone party for a couple of years. It was very inviting. Then we've been having a lot of programs for at least the month, well, in April, we had a climate talk right around Earth Day. And Katie Smith's with the county. It was the first time I reached out to her because of the tax refund. If she would be willing to come over here and just kind of be a point person, so patrons could come in here. It was very well received as far as people going like, wow, it's so great you're doing this. But in actuality, only I think she helped 2 people, but it was really in depth and I got feedback from patrons just being appreciative that we had that available here. And then she left a lot of the stuff and information here, so we have it here at the library. All of May, we've been doing a motion because it's mental health, wellness May. We've been doing Saturday emotional wellness yoga, and that has completely booked up every time, and at times has been, people didn't realize you had to sign up. And the woman who's teaching it has been wonderful and accommodating, so we've been able to have everybody, and the input that I've gotten from people has been fantastic. So we've got 2 more sessions of that, and then the one kind of fun thing that's gonna be happening in June, besides summer reading, which is always really fun. Hope everybody's signed up for that. We're doing a book swap here in Alta. So yeah, it's just for community. So I'm inviting all of you guys to come. It's June 26th, so it's a Wednesday. And from 5 to 7, just like tonight. Yep, and we're gonna have food and just fun gathering to talk books.
That's great. Sounds great. Any questions for Eva? Thank you. That's great, and it's really great to be here. My understanding was that we would do this once a year, but this is the first time, I think. First time I've been over here. So
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, I think we started this maybe about 5 years ago, say once a year coming. And certain of the times that we chose were not the greatest months, so. And you would think May would be okay, but it is on top of that, that's when I came by.
I thought May would be safe, but you never know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, no, I really appreciate having you guys over here, so, thank you.
It's important.
Pleasure to be here.
It is, it really is, it's a special place. Okay, so let's move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. And I'm gonna move to open a public hearing for the purpose of hearing comments on the proposed reference and information services policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. So now we are in an official public comment period. Does it look like we have anybody from the public?
No, nobody's online.
Okay, so, with that, I will move to close the public hearing, which was, the purpose of which was to take public comment on the proposed adoption of the reference and information services policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
One quick question, and Stella, did we get any online?
Kip did not share any with me, so my assumption is we did not.
I mean, it's a good policy. It's very general and just spells it out.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so let's move on to the policy itself. Did we lose Abigail?
Oh, there we go, sorry.
Was there anything you wanted to say, Abigail, or Stella, were you planning to say anything about it?
I did not have any plans, but if you had questions, I could probably fill those.
Okay, great.
I have nothing to add. I can just note, it's not unusual to get no public comment when we do these public notices for 45 days, so.
Great. Did the board have any comments or discussion on it?
It's pretty straightforward and, it really does just help staff respond to customers in a consistent way, and that's always helpful. And it just, seems like a very straightforward policy.
My experience having policy written up in this way and really having it defined really helps graduate students and stuff so that they can do their own research. But they still have access point and they can get some good reads from library and stuff.
Great. Thank you all. Does someone want to make a motion? To approve the adoption, to approve the resolution to adopt. the policy?
I'm to approve the resolution to adopt the reference and information services policy as presented with an effective date of May 22, 2024.
So Lee,
Second.
Stan, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great, motion passes. We have, a report regarding an adjustment for seasonal hours for Fridays, to better align with, the Teton County School District, calendar year. And I don't know if anyone has questions or discussion on that, yeah.
Has the library always adjusted the summer hours to 9?
We did last year and the year before, I believe. Although last year, I believe it was more aligned to the two holidays, so I believe that last year. The change happened right after the Memorial Day holiday, whereas now the request is to change it closer to the end of the actual school year.
So the hours are not changing, it's just when the change in hours takes effect, it's just a little bit farther into the.
Correct, versus what you had already approved, yeah.
It extends the day to 6, right? Until school's up.
So currently Fridays are until 6 p.m. So when school lets out, then more this summer, we'll close at 5 p.m. on Fridays. And I should clarify, that is just for the Jackson location. There is no request to change the Otto library hours.
Okay. Thanks.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we set the Jackson main branch library hours to align with the school district, both during the academic year and during the summer. Kind of rephrase that, but
That's right. I second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. Great. All right. The next thing on the agenda is matters for many of us, board members, employees, supporting organizations and partners. Stella, I think you already mentioned a little bit, this March register and the change there, but is there anything else you wanna? Oh, I'm sorry, I moved ahead. I moved ahead. My apologies. I think this is, just a time for us to share any information. And Kip did include the quarterly report that he and I drafted, and presented to the Board of County Commissioners a week or so ago.
I have a matter, and maybe I should have had it added to the agenda, I'm not sure. But, in light of START, approving the, on-demand transit to the library for the summer. Would it be appropriate for the board to write a letter, the library board to write a letter to the START board? And remind them that our primary concern is that students from the schools are able to take public transportation to the library for after-school programming. And that thank them profusely for, you know, allowing the on-demand transit, to bring people to the library. It's like Kim said, that's a great start, but we're still, would like to, pursue this additional level of accommodation for public transit to the library.
I think that's a really good idea, because I'm not even sure that the on-demand start can take children on there without an adult.
Oh, well, it doesn't extend to the schools. It's beyond that, yeah.
Even during the summer, they could be transported to the library per se.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know if kids can they even ride a start bus without a parent? The regular.
Well, that's a good
Yeah,
question.
I don't know what the lower age limit is, but I do know kids, middle school and high school do ride it. I just don't know what the lower level is. And I don't know if that's just in terms of the delegation of powers, is that something that Kip would do, Stella? You know, on behalf of the library staff, or is that a board role? Because I think it's a great idea if it's our role, and maybe that's a question too for Abigail.
That's what I'm maybe thinking.
Yeah, okay. Abigail, do you have an opinion if we wanted to communicate with the Start Bus board about our desire to have a routine stop from the school to the library? Would that be something that we could draft as a board?
You know, it's probably best coming from the board. It could be Kip. It's probably one of those things that could fall in either camp. I'll take a look at it while you're having further discussions about it. So then it can be, a final decision can be made about whether it's Kip or the board. I am curious, so are you suggesting, I mean, because right now there's no START service to and from the schools, period.
That's right.
So, well, I mean, the START bus does go by Smith's. so they're in that general area. They're on High School Road. But does it not connect to the school, to the library easily, the route?
The drop off is on Scott Lane, for the in-town commuter route. And that's a bit of a distance. They stopped using the that pullout that's right next to the library. They discontinued.
The one on Snow King?
Yes, they discontinued that. It had something to do with how the route had to make some wrong turn or something, like there was some complication. So they stopped doing that, and we would like to see that stop reintroduced, and whatever barriers are creating that problem be overcome. Or some new solution, but it is kind of important for kids to be able to get from the schools to the library for after-school programming.
So but it's also not necessarily limited to children, because it basically the bus stop near the library was eliminated, and it's now a block away, which is less of an issue for adults and more of an issue for kids.
Right.
That'd be,
And,
okay.
and for the summer, they are doing the on-demand transit. And that is for, only kids under 8 have to be with an adult. So, yeah, so.
Well, and the start on demand is limited. They're bringing it west, I think, to have it hit the library. Normally, it's just downtown in East Jackson. Because
Yeah.
it's created in part to not have the big buses running into East Jackson. So,
Yeah.
And barely, you've looked into this, but there is an activity bus. And the library, I think, used to be a stop.
Yes,
Is that a solution? Why does it need to be?
well, that's another thing we should look into, because
There's
it's
some,
the activity bus.
Yeah, so there is an activity bus I know from the middle school and from the high school, and has various stops around town for that reason. So kids
Okay.
go to gymnastics or the Center for the Arts, or they can be dropped at the hospital, and the library has traditionally been one of those stops. And that is right in front of the library, I mean, I see kids getting off, so I think that that's still the case. So we should just, before we draft the letter, we should just see who's on what bus and what the options are for kids.
Yeah.
Because maybe that is the solution. I don't know if the high school bus, activity bus comes to the library, but I'm pretty sure there's a middle school.
Jerry would be the best person to let you
yeah,
know.
your youth services guy he'll know.
At the library.
At the start of or prior to the start of the school year, they have reached out to the library to find out, do you want to be part of the activity bus? But I think that there's been some cases where what happens is then the youth area winds up being over capacity. Has happened in the past, to my knowledge, has been one of the situations that has occurred. Because the kids do come on separate level buses, but I guess they pretty much all come at the same time. So I do know that has been a concern amongst staff, is that then they're over capacity. Where do those kids go? And there's been a couple of other reasons,
I
but I'm not recalling all of them at the moment.
My recollection is there was an issue where the activities bus stopped coming to the library, in part because there was a disconnect when the library has to request it or something. And they, just to be aware, they set the route for the activity bus and all the buses way sooner than you might think. So, I mean, they might be talking now about next year's school, the fall school year. So the routes for the library, for the school buses might actually be up for discussion and finalization, like now for next September. It's really early. And so there had been a disconnect, and they were able to get back on the library was able to get back on the activity bus route, I thought. But again, I would definitely check on all of that.
And it sounds like, because it was a goal in the goal setting that was done, the annual goal setting, to try to reinstate that bus stop. And it's not just for after school activities. There are other programs that are being offered now that particularly for indigent people that might not have that automobile to get to the library. So we probably need to just kind of review all that with Kim and then see what, if we want to write a letter and continue to pursue that goal.
Sure.
I think educational for all of us to write that letter, and so that we really understand what the is and why that goal exists.
Agreed. Maybe this is something Mary Lee, you and Kip could talk about between
Sure.
now and the next board meeting, and if it needs to be an agenda item, you can put it on there.
Okay,
Does that sound
yeah,
good?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
Very
so
well
much.
might be worthwhile is once you've got the fact, the facts from, your people who are familiar with it, to sit down with Bruce Able to before any letters written and just talk to him. And then if the library needs to take an advocacy position for, that, then they can write the letter with all of that information feeding their.
that sounds good.
Thank you so much, Mary Lee, for bringing that up. Under this section, we also, have a note that due to the payment of invoices, with our current credit card, provider, to avoid incurring additional fees, we might need, 2 voucher meetings a month. So that the bills can be paid and we don't get charged. I don't think we've calendared those. Is the purpose just to give a heads up today? Or is it actually to put a few additional voucher meetings on the calendar?
I think I'm going
Stella, you
to
want me-
defer to Abigail on this
Yeah,
one.
I was gonna say, Stella, you want me to take this one? And then Stella's here to answer some of the more technical questions relating to the issues that led to this. So, when the library submitted its budget, to the county, we suddenly became aware, because none of us knew before, that in pretty directly related to the transition from having your own bookkeeper and your own bank account at First Interstate and all of those things being handled in-house to things transferring over to the county clerk and the county treasurer, that there's a lag time between when you approve your vouchers and when they finally get issued out by the county, that's causing credit card late fees and interest, which is prohibited by law. You can't use taxpayer money for those things. And so probably the only way to really deal with that is to have 2 voucher meetings a month, where all we would need is enough board members to hit a quorum at those times to show up for a little while, review, the vouchers, and then have a meeting online, could even be online rather than in person, approving those. So it's happening more often. So we don't have that lag time when things aren't paid within 30 days. Right now, the way your calendar is set up, which is pretty recent, it's only been a year or two we've been doing this, you, at the beginning of every fiscal year, so July, you have a meeting where you establish your schedule. It's a resolution, and it says, so the meetings used to be, just to remind everyone, in your bylaws, it said library board meetings are every, whatever, third Thursday, it used to be third Thursday, at 8 or 9:30 in the morning. And then we changed to do the same way the county does, where the bylaws say that the board meetings will be adopted by resolution each fiscal year. And we chose fiscal year because it's when you typically have your new board members coming on board, so you can sort of accommodate people's schedules. We've tried to have it still be a predictable time, so everyone sort of has in the back of their head that libraries usually second, third, fourth day of the week at whatever time. But it also gives you an opportunity to look at the calendar for that fiscal year, see when Christmas falls and when Thanksgiving falls, and so you can avoid those dates. I'm not sure we were very successful at that this past year. So since you're going to have to come up with a new calendar of regular and voucher meetings, a month from now, you only have one more meeting before you need to have your resolution. We just figured that we could work that in at that time, it's already is the way it is, so that would be the best time to fix it. Kip did mention to me so we're just bringing this up now so everyone's aware that we're going to be probably looking for this commitment unless anyone has any other ideas on how to fix the problem. But I'm not sure there is, so people can be aware of it, but also be thinking of the larger issues that we're going to have to do the calendar soon. And since most or all of you will also be on the board in the next fiscal year, start looking at your calendars now. So we can have a draft. I know Kip also mentioned that maybe the shift from Thursday mornings to Wednesdays at 5 has not panned out as well as people might have liked. I know part of the rationale was to have a meeting in the evening where members of the public might be more able and inclined to show up versus 9 o'clock in the morning. But I'm not sure that is in fact the case. So just to be thinking about that as well going forward. And if there are any questions.
Yeah, Stella, maybe you can clarify this. Does the library have multiple credit cards and they all come due at different times?
So, the library does have multiple credit cards. I would say there's maybe about 6 or 7 staff who have a credit card. They are all due at the same time, so they're all in the same cycle. And so, for example, Kip did reach out to First Interstate to try and get them to change our monthly cycle. They changed it, but they actually made it worse. They didn't do what Kip had requested. So for example, today, most likely, the credit card statements came out, obviously too late to get the vouchers in and the receipts from everybody and so forth. So for example, with this month, then if we have those statements paid at the June meeting, which would typically be what you would normally do, they're probably already gonna be late. So it's been this weird cycle that we're running into. But yes, everybody who has a credit card, we are all on the same terms.
I was wondering if maybe Abigail can help us with this too. If we move that voucher meeting, just move that up, say 2 weeks or whatever. And instead of having 2 meetings, and just move that. And we can still have our regular meeting schedule.
Well, right now, most of your meetings where you do vouchers are at your regular meetings. And then there were some months when you established your meeting schedule for this past fiscal year where you didn't think there would be a need for a meeting, especially like spring break or when things are kind of quiet and people might be out of town. But so you didn't have a regular meeting, but you set it for April, a voucher meeting, because no matter what, you can't go a whole month without a voucher, without someone paying vouchers. And it's interesting, the commissioners do other things at their voucher meetings, even though originally the intent was just to pay bills from those meetings. And so you're, in part because one of the board members at the time put it, when you did your bylaws, allowing it to be adopted by resolution each year. And then the default in your bylaws, by the way, is if you don't, say for some reason you still have their default rule in your bylaws is third Thursday at 9 a.m. or something. But she wanted the voucher meetings, when we went in that direction, to only ever be voucher meetings. So nothing else could be done at the voucher meeting, the way the commissioners throw things on theirs from time to time. But there's a workaround for that. If we need to do something that's not just payment of vouchers, and there's a voucher meeting where at least 3 of you are going to show up to pay vouchers, we just schedule a special meeting for that same time and date, and then you can do other business through the mechanism of the special meeting. So it's not like you have a voucher meeting every month. You only had, I don't even know how many of your meetings. I'd have to have the resolution in front of me. For this past year, I think out of every month, there was at least a voucher meeting, but most of them were regular meetings. I'm rambling, but did that make sense?
Yeah, I think
And
there's
so,
3 voucher meetings a year, and the rest are regular meetings where we also pay vouchers.
Right,
Or-
so you always pay vouchers at the regular meetings, and the voucher meetings were set up because you didn't think you'd need a meeting, but we knew we couldn't go a whole month without paying vouchers. Well, now we know because of the new system, we actually need to do vouchers more often. So we can set them up as their distinct schedule. I mean, it could be, since you pay vouchers at your regular meeting, when you're looking at your regular meeting schedule, for the upcoming fiscal year, one of those changes can perhaps accommodate what you're suggesting, that instead of having meetings more often, even just voucher meetings, if the regular meeting schedule were adjusted to fit in, but I'm not sure that's gonna cut it, but Stella can speak to that better. Whether just
Is
moving,
there a time of the month where if we met then, we would only have to meet once and it would not incur late fees?
It would probably need to be earlier in the month, because even like in this particular situation, if they are now being released about the 21st, 22nd of the month, then it would need to be earlier in the month. I'm trying to think of our other, regular bills that we have.
Right.
Some of the regular bills, the way we got through not having any finance charges was to have them be charged to credit cards online. So for example, we did have one of our utilities that we started to realize, they were starting to also assess a small late fee. But then we were able to get that online. We also encountered that with the town of Jackson, and so some of these regular bills, we've been able to mitigate that by just having them paid with credit cards every month.
Yeah.
But then of course, credit cards.
keep in mind, I recognize that it's inconvenient for you all as volunteer board members. And if we can find another solution, that's why we brought it up, to have a discussion first, rather than just putting something in front of you. But also, if you keep in mind, the substantial amount of money the library is now getting off on interest from now being as part of the county. What did that number jump to? Stella, was like huge.
I don't remember off the top of my
Literally
head.
jumped from
but
a couple $1,000s a year, if that, in interest from, balances that when First Interstate Bank had the accounts, to being held by the county, where the interest generated is tens of thousands of dollars, I think. But
one of the things we tried to do is we did try to fight the charges, or Kip, because he's the only one who's authorized to be able to really do that communication with First Interstate. And initially they were waiving some of those charges, but then we started to see that they weren't anymore and we weren't paying them. But what was happening is then that was just accumulating every month. And we realized that was just gonna continue to add.
Yeah.
So for example, as Abigail was saying, there was one month on my credit card statement where the finance charges were like $400. So that's when, okay, we have to pay this because
Right.
it's not gonna stop.
and Stella can speak to it in more detail, but I think what Kip told me is, I think it was about $3,000 each, so 6,000 total, 3,000 in late fees and 3,000 in interest. So $6,000 getting paid to these things every year.
And so Kip and I are interested in looking at different credit card companies. For sure, we wanna do that. And maybe hopefully we can find somebody that then would work within
Yeah.
our needs of our cycle of payment. But for the moment, until we can actually
Right.
change over, this is the unfortunate situation we're in.
So you just answered my question. So if we agreed to do an additional voucher meeting it would just be temporary until we have time to sort out how to solve the bigger problem. Is that what you're saying?
Ideally, I think that is the,
If we can solve it.
yeah.
And if we solve it. I mean, I'm not sure there are companies out there willing to do like a 45 or a 60-day, I mean, that'd be ideal, right? To say, we trust you, you're a library, we know you're gonna pay, and we know this is an issue, I mean, they're.
But it also sounds like there are possible solutions that really haven't been explored yet. And we need time to do that, but in the meantime, we need to solve the problem so we don't keep getting more just these ridiculous interest rates.
Well, I mean-
So. Yeah,
Oh, I was just gonna say, we can try and come up with solutions between now and, when we have to do the calendar next month or the month after. And then, yeah, but I feel like if there's going to be a solution, if we can't figure it out in the next 6-8 weeks, then we're not gonna find one.
Right.
So we'll just
No,
keep,
I mean,
but also there are other, it sounded like the other option is exploring if we could move our monthly board meeting to a different date. I know we moved it later because we weren't getting the financials from the county in time, so if we move it earlier, we could then pay the vouchers, get those sent sooner. So we can make our credit card payments, but then we'd miss the financials until the next month.
So I will add that it does seem like the financials are back on track. I think it was maybe just a few months there that there were some that were just coming in like right up until the board meeting time.
So conceivably, we could move our meeting to an earlier date in the month. And be able to then pay the vouchers through the credit cards. And the problem would be solved.
Ideally, hopefully, I would say. For example, I'm trying to look at, one of the county reports I'm looking at right now was released on the 8th of the month.
Okay.
So I would say. Usually they're probably released in the latter part of the second week of the month, I would say is kind of maybe the norm, so.
I know that with our credit cards, there's a little flexibility in terms of what date you can have the billing period be. Is that not possible with the business, is that just for?
So Kip did try and get that changed. They did not change it to the dates that we had asked for. They changed it to a different date, that's why it's kind of exact, made the problem worse. So he did try to have them, and then they wound up giving us a total different billing cycle than what was requested,
so I think we appreciate you and Kip and Abigail continuing to try to figure out a workaround, and then a recommendation for when the best meetings would be going forward, starting in July. And is it my understanding we don't need another voucher meeting this month or next, that we will just address this again when we set the whole calendars?
I think we need an early date in June, don't we?
If we do, I'm willing to help with that.
ideally, we would.
essentially decided this has already been going on for a long time, well over a year, maybe 2. So if there's one more month that it happens, just leave it and then start fresh in the July, for the July fiscal year. July 1st, 2025 fiscal year. So
So Abigail, what does it take to move a meeting that's already been put on our meeting schedule? Like if we want to amend the meeting schedule, how do we go about that?
you adopted your meeting schedule with a resolution. So you'd amend the resolution to change the meeting schedule, but that actually wouldn't be the mechanism. If we were only halfway through the year, then that is actually how we would do this. But right now, if you wanted to have an additional meeting to pay vouchers sooner in June, we would just schedule a special meeting. So we was just schedule a special meeting to pay vouchers to avoid late fees and do that in June. And then, you know, adopt the resolution for the fiscal 2025 fiscal year, at the first meeting in July.
I mean, I feel like now that we know about it, it's responsible to do that, and these voucher meetings aren't long. I would prefer, just for good governance, to meet additionally in June and do a special meeting.
You do that,
Do I get a motion? Should I make a motion?
to send it a special.
Yeah, I think we need definitely just a motion that will schedule a special meeting. Lisa's chair, I think you can call special meetings, so you can have a motion second approved by the board to schedule a special meeting and maybe discuss dates, but then it, you know, you don't have to set it in stone right now, because
Okay.
Stella might need to check on what that date needs to be, like, unless she knows now.
Okay, so I'm happy to make a motion if we want to. Stella, do you think you and Kim need more time to figure out the date in June? And so my motion could just be general, that pending. You all looking at the calendar, we will agree to meet one more time in June.
It's good.
Okay.
I think that would work.
All right, so I move that the board meet at a date to be determined in the early part of June to address and vote to approve vouchers.
Second, the motion, that special.
Any discussion?
Good idea.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes, and then, right, Stella, you and Kip just tell us, and we'll figure out when to get on, and then does that require also someone coming in to sign vouchers?
Yeah.
One more time, which,
Yes.
is that okay?
It's fine with me, and Peggy will be here during another.
I believe she will be back. Yes.
Oh, right, that's right.
And then too, I think what I was hearing, and I just want to clarify, is that the board really, I don't think we like the idea of having two meetings a month, one a voucher meeting and one a regular board meeting later in the month, so we would like to align, somehow solve this problem without having to meet twice a month. And it's all, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
While we're on the topic, I should probably throw out, there's potentially one other issue that we're looking at, which is that, and I don't know enough about the particulars to speak to it fully, but the way when you go to pay for your car registration, if you pay with a credit card, there's an additional fee versus paying with a check. And I believe that also might have some might be based on some statutory requirements about what you can and can't do. But right now, the library allows people to use credit cards for a variety of things and doesn't charge. Whether you pay for cash or check or a credit card, it's the same. You know, the patrons are charged the same. And so that might need to be addressed in terms of credit card use by patrons with the library. And I just giving you guys a heads up that we're going to be looking at that.
Okay, thank you, Abigail. All right, I think we are ready to move on to the last agenda item, which is the payment of vouchers for this month. Stella, you, I think, addressed this in your report earlier in the meeting, but is there anything else you want to say?
Sure, so in regards to the warrant registers, so we've linked or provided you with the warrant registers, and this is the list of checks and the vendors that they were issued to and the amounts. Because April was a voucher meeting, so we've included the March information as well as then the April information. And then there's also one that says April warrant register reissue. And this is on one check only, and that is because the vendor, the check was originally approved, issued to them, but they never received it, so the county put a stop check and reissued them another payment, so that is why one of the registered lists is solely one vendor. The other thing to mention, the amount that I listed on the agenda, it's actually increased slightly. We had to pull one of the invoices because we realized there was an error on the invoice in terms of who they billed it to. The amount was correct. And Vicky did sign the voucher, the amount was correct, but we did get the corrected invoice today. So we can submit that with the rest of our vouchers to the county tomorrow, but that amount was slightly increased from what it is on the agenda.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Do I have a motion then to approve payment of the vouchers?
I would like to move that we pay the vouchers in the amount, corrected amount of $53,513.80.
Vicky, second,
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? All right, that motion passes. And is there anything else that anyone would like to say for the good of the order? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
It was great to be over there. This library is beautiful. And
I do have one little question that should have caught my attention at the bottom of the schedule. And that's the library director's performance review. And do we do that in July? It says annually from director's anniversary date, July 6th.
It's a good question.
We can talk about it in June.
I might need a little handling on that, because this is the first time I've been chair. And I might need to revisit it with Peter, just how it's been done in the
And
past.
I just remember last year we did it. It was my first board meeting. And we were not very happy with the procedure.
Mhm.
And I did notice that the community foundation has some guidelines about how to do a performance review.
Okay.
And we might wanna take a look at those. And yeah, just kind of do a little homework before we set a date with Kim, and so we're happy with how we go about it.
just a clarification, Stella was, that's the date or roughly the time he started the job, that way it's tied to them.
I believe so. I thought we started the second week in July, but
That would be
Don't-
roughly a year. So
Yeah. I don't know, Abigail, you wanted to chime in on anything on this question?
Other than you're fine in where the discussion has been so far, because it's more about process and procedure for, an annual review, but keep in mind that all of that takes place, the actual review takes place in executive session because it's a personnel matter. It's one of the very few times the board actually goes into executive session. So be aware of that, where everything's confidential. So in addition to being aware that that happens with the director's review, probably we need to touch base with what you do when you go into an executive session. How you do it procedurally.
I think we might need someone to walk us through what we are supposed to do and what Kip is supposed to do. Does he do a self-assessment? Is there a form that we fill out? I think we're just new enough that this is maybe our first rodeo.
I think probably we need to reach out to the HR director that we do not have. So
Okay, well, we can, I'll,
I don't know. I have never been in the room or involved in any way with the board's review of the directors.
I have a from last year, but I don't remember any process before that. I don't remember meeting, I don't remember filling out anything, I don't remember talking to Kim.
The county has the appropriate procedural instructions. It's in the current manual, but that is, it's undergoing revision, isn't it, Abigail?
What, the policy manual?
The Teton County policy manual that has all this stuff in it.
I don't think it is right now. I mean, we have the HR sort of policy manual that it is, you know, the county adopts, the commissioners adopt, and it gets amended from time to time. So there's like the 2024 version of that policy manual. But then there are, and I'm not sure they apply to the executive director, it might, when you adopt that policy manual for the library with the autonomy that you folks have, there are some edits and changes made when you do that by resolution. There are specific sections. Actually, all the electeds, the sheriff and the county attorney, and everyone is an elected position because the county's organization is so horizontal, sort of very separation of powers, that each, you know, elected official that has that independence can sort of, to some extent, they pick and choose, you know, what applies to them and what doesn't. So we need to look at the policy manual, and B, look at what the board, what elements of that policy manual the board adopted. I'm not sure any of that relates too much to the review process, though. My instinct is, even though you have traditionally worked with HR and used a lot of the same forms, like when I get my review over here, or anyone else, you know, in the county, you do have some autonomy, because a key function of the library board, in addition to managing the money for the library and the operations of the library with more autonomy than is hiring the library director.
Right.
So just a clarification on. So a new director gets hired on whatever date, the contract comes from the county, right?
I don't actually know.
Is there a time where, you know, like in a school district, contracts all go out at the same time? Does that happen at the county level as well? Do you all get a new contract, or?
Wyoming's at will. We don't have contracts. So this is an annual review by a view of the library director. And I don't think the director has, we're drifting a little close to personnel matters. I don't think it has a contract. No one does. Everyone's at will. Wyoming's an at-will employment state.
So Stella and Eva might be able to shed light on.
Just a few things. Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I know for just with staff, it's anniversary. Right, and then with part-time, it depends on number of hours that the individual has done. But that's different for the directorship.
Yeah, but
And I know that we have those amenities or those amendments with the policy, but they're very particular to, I think, like our signage. It's more like things having to do with public facing, like we have certain alarms. I can actually go run and get that, but it's not about personnel. And the policy itself is very, just saying that there's a review that happens, but it doesn't go into specifics about, procedural stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just going to share that there is a performance evaluation form for county employees, as well as a self-evaluation form. However, I do not know if those apply to the director level.
Well,
So I don't know if those forms are used for the other director positions.
I just found a document in my file. It says Performance Actions Management Spreadsheet, PASS. And at the top of this Excel spreadsheet, it says Director Performance. And then it goes through and it has goals, and then Kip responded to all of these goals. And it's a very, it's 4 pages, I'll just share it with you.
That'd be great. I do remember something like that. I don't remember then what Peter asked us to do.
Yeah, we're keen.
And then we did have an executive session.
I think Kip will have, yeah.
All right, do I have a motion to, thank you for bringing
And
that up.
just one point of clarification too, I might not be here in July.
I actually might not either. Well,
I
it is-
don't know, I might not be on board.
Oh,
I just submitted my application, I have to be reappointed.
that's right.
So just so you know, I might not be there.
Okay. Um. Anything else? Then I'm gonna move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.